Thanks, everybody. This is an excellent day because it's Octopus Day. Octopuses are super, super interesting, just like every animal. But a lot of the animals that we talk about, I go, oh, this is kind of a neat animal. And then I learn how interesting they are. But octopuses, I had a little bit of stress about because they're so neat, and I wanted to make sure that like everyone knew how neat they were. So hopefully you will. So we had some questions on what is the plural of octopus, and this is kind of interesting because technically the plural of octopus is octopuses, but because the root word is from the Greek. But if it was Latin, it would be octopi. And so sometimes when scientists are talking very high science, they use a lot of Latin words, and so they use octopi. So you can use any one if you want. You can also call them octopods if you want to be super nerdy about it. Everything's accepted. Octopuses are very accepting creatures, and so are the scientists that work with them. So octopuses are a mollusk, and a mollusk is an invertebrate. It has no backbone. They live in wet and damp environments like slugs or snails, like we talked about, mussels, and octopuses. That's kind of interesting that an octopus and a snail are related. There is...
Bah non, j'entends maintenant.
So the fossil species is estimated between 60 to 100,000 different types of mollusks. And so that's in the whole history of the planet, there's like 100,000 different types of mollusks. So not just octopus, but like everything that's an invertebrate that lives in wet and damp environments, which is pretty neat. Now, the oldest octopus in the fossil record is actually an octopus that lived 296 million years ago. They knew it was an octopus because it had 2 eyes, it had 8 legs, and it had an ink sac, which is super neat. So 296 million years ago, that is before dinosaurs existed, octopuses were around. So they have been in the sea, in all of the seas, for a really, really long time. Now, they're mollusks, but they're also, so they're all mollusks, but then they're a cephalopod. And a cephalopod is Greek, meaning head foot. And if you think about what an octopus looks like, and when I show you later, you know, they're like a head, and they have a whole bunch of legs. So head foot kind of makes sense. Now, all cephalopods are active predatory mollusks. So all cephalopods are like cuttlefish, octopus, squid, things like that. And we'll be talking about squids later, which is going to be pretty cool. Now, of all the cephalopods, octopuses are the smartest ones. They're so incredibly smart, it's actually amazing. They can figure out mazes, they play games, they can distinguish between each other, which most animals can, but they can also distinguish between different humans, which is pretty cool as well, because there are some animals that just see humans and go like, prey or predators. But they have, like in aquariums and things like that, or if there are divers in the sea that go to the same reef often, they will know the different divers and the different faces and what they do, and they'll have favorites. Or they'll have ones they don't really like, which is also kind of neat. With their tentacles, they can also open child-proof bottles. They can take things apart in a lot of aquariums for enrichment to make sure that the octopuses have something to do because they're so smart and they don't want to just sit in a tank for a long time. And they will give the octopuses clear plastic boxes that have food in them, and the octopuses will take them apart and get the food. And once they figure out how to open that box, they'll always remember it, or most of the time they'll remember it. So the aquarium will have to put that box in a box, and that box, another box, another box, another box. So it's like Russian nesting dolls of like different boxes, because the octopuses are so smart and they're like trying to figure out these puzzles to get their little octopus cookies. So there are 300 different types of octopuses in the whole world. They live all around the world. They live in coral reef. They live in intertidal estuary areas where it's kind of salt water and kind of fresh water. They live in abysses. They live super, super far down. And they can live almost anywhere that there's water and it's mostly salty. So like I said, they're an 8-legged mollusk, but wait, no, they're not. They actually have 6 arms and 2 legs. What? So that was one of the things that made it amazing to me, because we always think that they have 8 legs or 8 arms. No, 6 arms, 2 legs. Their arms can, this is super interesting as well. Their arms can feel texture, of course. They can feel the shape, of course, of food, but they can also taste. They can use their suction cups to taste the food that's coming in. And so a lot of octopuses, what they'll do is they will have some food that they like that we'll talk about in a bit, but they will grab the food with the end of their tentacles and they'll move the food along their tentacles, along all their suction cups, and that's how they start tasting their food, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty neat. Each arm of an octopus has about 240 suckers. This depends on species, but that's about the average, 240, which means each octopus has about 1,920 suckers in total. It's pretty interesting math, and that would be pretty fun to be a scientist, just counting the suction cups. Another really cool thing is octopuses bleed blue rather than red, because their blood is really rich in copper rather than iron. And the reason this exists is because if they had a lot of iron in their blood like we do, they wouldn't be able to dive down really far in the abysses and water and things like that. Copper is just way better for their air and blood circulation. So that's pretty neat. I guess if you're on the earth for that long, you do adapt some pretty cool features. Now they have 3 hearts, which is also super neat. 2 of their hearts just move blood around their gills. So 2 of their hearts are just to get blood and oxygen and everything around their gills so they can breathe, which is neat. Their 3rd heart moves all their blood around their body, and this one actually stops beating when they're swimming. What? And so that's really interesting. So you might have seen videos of octopuses crawling on the seafloor or like walking. They're doing that because we need to breathe. And so sometimes they will swim, but they can't swim for a very long time because their blood has stopped pumping around their body. So they'll swim for a little bit, they'll get away or they'll attack something, and then their heart will start again. Now, the part of an octopus that is the head is called the mantle, but the mantle is actually everything. That's where everything is in the octopus, which is pretty neat. Their stomach and their brain and everything up in their head. And of course, right, like where else would it be? Now, interestingly, they do have something called a siphon and they have a beak. So the beak is the only part of the body that is hard. They're invertebrates, they don't have a backbone, they don't have bones, but they do have this little beak. And the beak, like if you think of an octopus like this is the mantle, these are its legs and arms. The beak would be under here, but then the siphon is on the top. We'll talk about why those are important to differentiate. Now the beak is what they eat out of course. And it's how, they talk to each other. But the beak, interestingly, is because it's the only hard part of the octopus's body, that is how small they can squish. So if you get a giant, huge octopus, and we'll talk about how big they can get, but it has a beak that's only like the size of my hand, even if the octopus is 200 pounds, if it's huge, it can squish into a small hole, or it can squish out of a small hole to escape as long as its beak can get through that hole. Crazy. Now the siphon, which is on the mantle, they use to breathe. So that is what is connected to their lungs, but it's also how they move water around, which is also breathing. So they use that siphon to sometimes squirt playfully, sometimes squirt to hunt. That's also how they squirt their ink, And it also is used for their poo and things like that. So their siphon is pretty important. Does a lot of stuff. It gets all the things from their mantle out. And sometimes they use it for hunting. And of course, they breathe through their gills. So the water comes in through their gills and goes out through their siphon. Now, how big are octopuses? The giant Pacific octopus, if you can imagine, is the largest known octopus. The adults weigh between, who knows how big? So generally, the adults are between 15 kilograms. Well, yeah, we're just 15 kilograms, which is about 33 pounds. They have an arm span of about 4.3 meters, which is 14 feet. So pretty big. So they don't weigh that much, but they're very, very long because there's not a lot of weight in like a squishy jelly octopus. However, the largest one ever was 71 kilograms, which was 165.5 pounds. So, you know, they're around 33 pounds unless they're not, they're gigantous. The smallest species of octopus is Octopus wolfie with the cutest name. It's around 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch, and weighs less than 1 gram, which is 0.03 ounces. So very, very little. A cute little wolf. Now, octopuses are so interesting for a number of reasons. One is that they're so smart. So I said that they can do these puzzles. They're really good at mazes. They learn incredibly fast. Now, this is so interesting because octopuses have a life expectancy of sometimes 6 months, but the oldest octopuses only live for about 5 years. So they learn all of this in less than 5 years, in less than 1 year. Another really amazing thing is octopus moms will lay about 40,000 eggs. And when she lays all the eggs, she sits at the mouth of the cave where she has laid them, and she guards them until they hatch. And when they hatch, they swim away. So octopus moms don't teach anything to their babies. They don't get any lessons in school. There's nothing like that. They just know how to be amazing creatures, and you know that they should be learning real quick, which is pretty neat. Octopuses are generally solitary creatures. They spend a lot of their time alone. There are some octopuses that do live in sort of like a school, like other fish would. Most of them do live alone though. They live generally inside dens, and they like to decorate their dens with really pretty shells and rocks and things like that. And so that's actually where the term octopus's garden comes from, because the term song, because octopuses actually make a garden for themselves. They make, you know, in their short time on Earth, only 5 years, they spend a lot of time making things look really nice, which is pretty cool. So like I said, they do spend time in dens. They like living around rocky outcrops or caves. Sometimes they do burrow into the sand, but they do like to have a nice safe area that they can retreat into, which is pretty neat. They are lovers and not fighters. What they like to do if something wants to attack them or they get scared is they do shoot ink. Now, this ink is also really, really neat because it's not just ink that like confuses predators and like smoke bomb and they go away. The ink actually will sting the eyes of the predator. It can cause blindness or irritation, temporary blindness or irritation. It also garbles up the predator's smell and their taste. And so if it's something like a shark that's coming for them that uses a lot of smell to find its prey, all that ink goes in their nose and they don't really know what's going on. This is temporary, but it does give the octopus enough time to get away. Another really amazing thing about octopuses, and all cephalopods actually, is they have these specialized skin cells called chromatophores. Chromatophores. I had to look on Google how to say that. So each cell in their skin has a stretchy sac that is filled with pigment. And so that in itself is pretty interesting. But this stretchy sac that's filled with pigment can be red or brown or black. There's lots of different colors in them. When the muscles around the cell tighten, the pigment in the sac is wider, and that makes it more visible on the octopus's skin. And so when it relaxes, there is less pigment that you can see on the skin. And so that is how the octopus has such good camouflage. They have all these muscles that make it big and small, and these sacs that are filled with all these different colors. You can see it or it goes away, and there's tons of them. This is on a cell level, so it's not even like a little freckle, it's even smaller than that. And so each one, each sac is also connected to a nerve, and so each nerve reacts by itself. And so that means the octopus can change its color in 0.3 of a second. It can be camouflaged. And it also means it can change its color in lots of different amazing ways, which is pretty neat. So it's all controlled by the nervous system. And so it means that when they see a predator, before they have to think about, is that a predator, what's going on, they can be totally camouflaged. Or sometimes when they get excited, they change a different color and they go like, oh, hey, how's it going? You're my pal. There are the blue ring octopus in Australia is highly, highly toxic. And so their blue rings, I'll show you a picture of them because they're really beautiful. Their blue rings will actually kind of like glow to show the other animals in the sea, I'm toxic, get out of here. So sort of like a firefly glowing and saying, hey, do not eat me. I'm going to taste gross and make you not feel good. Octopuses are colorblind, which is also really neat, but they can detect the brightness of the world and light on their skin. And so they can also, if they are trying to be camouflaged, and they can detect that there's light going on them, they can make their skin be lighter. So if they're pretending to be a rock, pretty classic move for an octopus if it wants to hide, and then someone shines a flashlight on them, then the areas of the octopus that are illuminated will also get brighter because it knows that there's light on it. So that's amazing. No wonder they've been around for so long. Another kind of amazing thing is if a predator does get a hold of their arm, they can drop some of their tentacle. Now, a really amazing thing about this is the tentacle grows back as good as the old one. So sometimes you hear like lizards will drop a tail if a predator gets it and they need to scuttle away, and their tail grows back like kind of smaller, kind of not great. Not the case with the octopus. The octopus tail or octopus arm or leg grows back exactly perfect, which is pretty neat. I wanted to know how long this took, and so I had to do like a deep dive with the Smithsonian, and it takes 3 days for the regeneration to start. So it's 3 days, the octopus going, oh man, my tentacle, come on. But then after 28 days, there's a clump of healing cells that start to grow, and it takes about 100 days for a new arm to completely grow back. And that depends like how long, literally how long the tentacle is and how much needs to grow. But it's pretty neat. I also wanted to know if that hurt the octopus, and the answer is yes. Octopuses do feel pain, like all animals do, and so it's not really nice to know. But I did also find out that octopuses are so smart, they can almost like reason if pain is necessary. So in the wild, scientists have seen octopuses hunting for crabs. They grab onto a crab, and the crab will kind of try to get away and use their claw, is what we're looking for. Will try to claw at them. And the octopus, instead of like dropping the crab, will know this hurts a little bit, but this is going to be delicious soon, and will hold on to the crab. I think it's pretty neat. Nearly all octopuses are bottom dwelling, and they eat mainly crustaceans, so like crabs. They eat other mollusks. like clams, prawns, fish, other cephalopods like cuttlefish and things like that. There are some cases of octopuses eating small dogfish, which are just a type of shark. So that is pretty cool. Octopuses normally inject crustaceans, crabs, with paralyzing saliva. So they have a toxin in their beak that they can actually, it takes a while, but it's nerve toxin, and they drill a hole. So they have radula, just like snails, like we talked about. So they have like tiny little microscopic teeth in their beaks. So those tiny little microscopic teeth will drill down into a clam, and then they're able to shoot some of the nerve toxin in the clam. The clam opens up and they have a meal, which is pretty amazing to think about. Their radula is very, very small, like all of them. And it takes about 3 hours to create a hole big enough for the octopuses that do this to get a hole that they can inject the nerve toxin in, which is crazy, y'all. So that is a lot about octopuses, which is pretty neat. So I am going to share my screen and show you some pictures of octopuses. So here is a beautiful octopus. You can see how this one kind of has like an umbrella shape. Between the tentacles, there's quite a lot of skin, sort of like what we see with flying foxes and with bats and things like that. Between all their digits, there's a bit of skin for, living and everything. You can see a beautiful mantle, and it shows you how amazing they are, that in their mantle, in their head, all their stuff, everything that they need. You can kind of see a little bit of its siphon just beside its eye there, and that's where they would sometimes they propel themselves with the siphon. That is where they shoot ink out of, and that is how they poo. I know some people are interested in that. Here's another beautiful, I think like every picture of an octopus is beautiful, but here's a really beautiful picture of an octopus. You can see its siphon on the side. You can see big, beautiful eyes. Octopuses, like humans, are symmetrical. So they have 2 eyes, the beak is in the middle, and their big, beautiful mantles, just like our big, beautiful mantles, are perfectly round. You can see all the little suckers on this octopus. And remember, the suckers that are arms can taste. And so you can see little holes in all these little suction cups, these suckers, and they're using that to taste. Weird. Here's an octopus that is doing a very excellent job at pretending it is a rock. You can see the siphon on the side, or sorry, you can see a gill on the side. And you can see like their big, wonderful eyes again. And you can see this one is probably walking on the bottom. Remember, whenever they swim, they have to turn, their heart turns off, one of their hearts. And so walking along the bottom is just a lot nicer. You want to have your heart all the time. Here is an octopus that is wonderfully crawling up the side. Now you can see its siphon on this picture. It's right beside, I wonder if I have no, I do not. Oh, yes, I do. So the siphon is right here, which is pretty amazing. So here is one of the gills. They have gills on both sides of their mantles, and this is the siphon. And then again, look at these big, beautiful suction cups, these little suckers. They're very nice. Now here is the most poison, most toxic octopus in the whole world. It is the blue, it is, I cannot remember the name off the top of my head, but it is, it's an amazing octopus in Australia, blue ringed octopus, not circle, blue ringed octopus. Now they're the ones that their cells will actually glow their blue rings. Now here's an amazing thing about them. Their toxins are actually so potent that if you were bitten by one of them, it would be very bad, and they can kill a person. But here's the amazing thing. Their toxins only exist in your body for about 24 hours. And so what their toxins do is they shut down your lungs, which is pretty scary. But scientists and doctors have figured out the toxins only exist in your body for about 24 hours. So if you seek medical attention and you have help breathing, in 24 hours, you'll actually wake up and you'll be fine. So you don't have to worry about them. I mean, you shouldn't get bitten by them, but if you do, it's actually totally okay. You just have to go see a doctor. They do live on the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and again, they're so beautiful. This one is showing off to anything that wants to try to eat it. Nuh-uh, it will not feel nice. Do not eat me. So that is octopuses. Does anyone have any questions? If you have a question, do octopuses change different colors all at once or one color only? That is a great question. So for their camouflage, what they do is they change lots of different colors. So if they want to look like a rock, what they'll do, they also can change sort of like the structure a little bit of their skin. So they want to look like a rock, but they don't want to look smooth. So they look kind of jagged, and they have many different colors that their skin will turn. So so when you see them, it's not just like a blue or a yellow octopus. They're really speckly and spotted in lots of different things, which is also really good because so many animals that live in the sea don't have very good eyesight. So their camouflage, which looks really great for us, looks perfect if you are, if you're living under the water all the time and can't see stuff.
How do octopuses walk?
Yeah, okay, that is super neat because they walk in two different ways. So remember, they have 6 arms and 2 legs. And so some octopus, you can actually see them, there's like a big current in the ocean. And so it looks like they're walking like people on 2 legs. And they're just like going through the sea floor walking, which is pretty funny. But a lot of them, what they do is they spread out their body on the sea floor and they'll kind of crawl. And they, especially if there's a lot of current, they will hold on to rocks and they'll kind of drag themselves like just a little bit up off the sea floor. So they're not hurting themselves at all, but they'll kind of scuttle and walk on the sea floor that way, rather than like propelling themselves like we sort of think octopuses would. When they learn things of how to open jars, so they teach others. So this is so interesting as well, because yeah, I didn't talk about the predators either. So because so many octopuses are solitary creatures, they don't actually teach each other how to do things. They learn everything on their own. And when, like I said, when their moms lay 40,000 eggs and their moms see that the octopuses have hatched from those eggs, the moms will swim away. And so octopuses don't learn anything from their mom. They don't learn anything from their friends. They just swim away and they find like a cave to themselves and they just like start learning, start figuring out how to do things. And like they're so into getting octopus treats, like little pieces of crab or little mollusks. They will learn. I'm going to learn how to open this box because I really want this treat. Highly motivated. Yes, octopuses do have predators. Anything that is bigger than them, which is why their camouflage is so good and so important for them, and why the octopus ink is so important. So the first defense that they have is camouflage. They pretend that they're a rock or they're the sea floor, or like, oh, I'm a bunch of sand, I'm not anything. Because the things that like to eat octopus are things like sharks. So they don't have very good eyesight, but they're very good at smell. And so if a shark comes after them, because they can smell the octopus rather than see it, then they'll shoot ink at it and they'll go away. Sharks seals really like to eat octopus. Pinnipeds, like seals and dolphins, will eat octopus. Any predator of the deep, bigger octopus will sometimes eat smaller ones. But it's mainly things like sharks, orca whales, sea lions, seals, and dolphins.